we're running a little bit behind, but we're going to make up for it so that we can make sure that we all have plenty of time to get out to the neighborhoods this evening. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Taylor? Mr. Taylor? Ms. Herbert? Dr. Bussells? Mr. Brennan?
Present.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Present.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Here.
Thank you.
Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reverend McDowell, will you give us a little word on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon that we're having in the great city of Columbia, South Carolina?
We gather today to celebrate not only life, health, and strength, but we also celebrate our city as we continue to expand and grow. We celebrate the whole notion of leaving this place in just a few moments to celebrate with members of our community as we all celebrate National Night Out. Touch, sensitize us, and yet inform us of your goodness and your mercy. Amen.
Amen, amen. Thank you. We have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
I got a first and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Taylor? Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here who'd like to speak on any item agenda? This is your opportunity. We also have at the end of the agenda opportunity for anyone to speak on any subject they would like to. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is the approval of minutes from June 7th of 22, June 14th of 2022, and June 21st, 22. Is there a motion?
Motion. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussions, concerns, changes? Hearing none, seeing none. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Herbert?
Yes.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann, council, you all are asked to approve consent agenda items 2 through 16.
Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, concerns, questions on any item? That's items 2 through 16, excuse me. Hearing none, seeing none. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
On our agenda, we have items 2 through
15.
I think it should be 2 through 15. My
I apologize.
Okay,
Okay.
let's make
Items-
that correction. Can we withdraw the motion and restate it, please? Is there a motion for consent items 2 through 15?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
With that correction, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye.
Thank you.
Ordinance first reading, item 16 is ordinance number 2022-033, granting first renewal to MCI Metro Access Transmission Services Corp., its successors, and assigns the right, power, and authority to construct, install, maintain, and operate in, over, upon, and under the streets and public places of the City of Columbia, its lines, poles, wires, cables, and other telecommunications facilities to render telecommunications service to its customers in the limits of the City of Columbia for such period as provided herein, and to provide for the payment of compensation for the use of the streets and public places.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any discussion points, concerns from council? I would just want to make sure is that we continue to work through the right-of-ways and everything, that the communication, we do have a point of communication. As you know, we've had some struggles with some late providers in the right-of-way in several neighborhoods, and I just want to make, as we continue to move forward, that we have clear communication with all these providers. Hearing no other discussion, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor? Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye.
Resolutions, item 17, resolution number R 2022-065, approval for release and abandonment of City of Columbia sewer easements for CIP project number SS 7261, the Lake Catherine Sewer Line Capacity Enhancement Project along 4632 Lelas Court.
Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion, questions, concerns? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam
Wait,
Clerk?
I actually, so this is basically saying that this project is complete?
It is complete, essentially, yes, ma'am.
Do you have any follow-up, Dr. Bussells?
Nope. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, could you read the roll at this point?
Sir, Mr. Taylor? Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye.
Thank you.
Event resolutions, item 18, resolution number R 2022-040, authorizing consumption of beer and wine only at the Richland Music Festival
Move for
on
approval.
Saturday.
Any discussion, any concerns, questions? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Mr. Taylor? Ms. Herbert? Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye.
Item 19, resolution number R 2022-053, authorizing consumption of beer and wine only within Boyd Plaza adjacent to the Columbia Museum of Art for Shay Alexander Presents Live on Boyd Plaza.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, questions or concern? Not seeing any or hearing any. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Mr. Taylor? Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye.
Item 20, resolution number R 2022-054, authorizing consumption of beer and wine only within Boyd Plaza adjacent to the Columbia Museum of Art for Arts and Draughts on Friday, November 11th, 2022.
Motion to approve.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions, concerns? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor? Mr. Taylor? Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye.
Moving into a period of appointments, item 21, the Columbia Housing Board of Commissioners.
I'd like to move forward Kevin Werner. Y'all all should have received his thing. For us to really support the new CEO, Ms. Bean, and the board in enhancing and delivering on the 2030, Kevin is probably the best choice for that, with his experience with our TN board, his experience as multifamily developer who knows how to leverage public dollars and assets with the private sector to deliver projects through Miller Valentine, and his exceptional work with our staff throughout the years. I move Kevin Werner forward.
Second.
Second. Any discussion, questions, concerns?
Personal privilege, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I've had an opportunity to converse with our Mrs. Bean, our director, and of course, has spoken with her at length as it relates to the vetting process. She speaks highly of Mr. Warner, and just wanted to place that into record, sir.
Thank you very much for that, Reverend McDowell. Any other questions or concerns? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye. Thank you very much.
City Council Committee referrals, reports, and new business. Item 22, Healthy Start Funding Request, the Honorable Daniel J. Rickenmann, Mayor.
Yeah, if you recalled, Healthy Starts had reached out to us early on, and since then, they have raised some of the money. Their project was about $194,000 over due to costs of construction, COVID, et cetera. They had raised all the money previously. They're located right outside the city, but their clientele is the majority of our most challenged areas to provide healthy food at a discounted price through a trust fund for some of the offtake on the SNAP program that was brought forth by Senator Pinckney before he passed away. And so they've been able to do this. This project started off as a project here in Columbia and has grown to multiple counties throughout the state. It was hatched through the University of South Carolina's health, I shouldn't say, it's not the public health school, but the medical school here in Columbia. And I would recommend that we help them finish this project. Their request has been in your packet. We have some resilience funds that we appropriated for this type of group and request from last year that's left over, and I would suggest that we move forward on their request. I make the motion. If I could have a second.
Second.
Mr. Mayor,
Any discussion?
was this information sent out?
Yeah. It's in our packet.
How much is the request for?
194.
It's for $80,000. The original request was for the whole 94. This would cover the HVAC to finish up the project off Two Notch Road.
Mr. Mayor, how much did the county put in?
Yeah.
Since this is in the county.
To be honest, I don't know how much out of the 800 or 900 the county put in. I don't have that exact dollar.
Do you know if they put any in?
I do believe they put money. I can't tell you the amount. I would be lying if I tried to make up a number.
And where are you suggesting the funding source be?
The leftover money from the resilience fund that was adopted during the pandemic that was set up for this type of operations.
What are those resilience funds eligible, what was the eligibility for that? Is it for basic services?
You want me to talk about it?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just going to read because I figured you would ask the question. As the council, formerly seated council, established the funding mechanism in March of 2020, Columbia City Council established the Resilient Columbia Nonprofit Stabilization Grant Program. The purpose was to provide operational support for nonprofits providing direct community services in response to COVID-19. Through the action of Columbia City Council, total funding of $450,000 was allocated for the program. As of today, $300,000 is remaining for allocation. Eligible programs and services provided by applicable nonprofit organizations include food, shelter, rent assistance, and utility assistance.
So, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
So initially, the funds were set up for COVID. Was it COVID relief funds or what? Or
Yes,
did
sir.
we make it COVID relief with many branches.
Well, during that time frame, if you recall, Reverend McDowell, the council established funding grants for
remember.
small businesses and that type of thing. In addition, the council allocated $450,000 towards nonprofit stabilization grants. And it was for those reasons I outlined. The eligible activities were for programs that impacted services regarding food, shelter, rent assistance, and utility assistance through the nonprofit entity.
And I do have to apologize, Mayor, because I thought in the email exchanges that Councilman Duvall said
I'm
he
sorry,
wants.
I can't hear you, Ms. Herbert, sorry.
I didn't read this particular project because I thought in the email exchanges from Mr. Duvall, he said he wanted to hear more, and I thought the response was it would be brought up in future setting, of future.
Just said the same thing that Mr. Duvall asked me about. Mr. Duvall asked me about gun violence and the slow 20 is plenty.
Okay, okay.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure, I mean, I'm all for that. I just want to make sure that the fund balance will support the $80,000,
Yes, sir.
leaving us with a balance of how much?
We have 300,000 now, so we would take the 80 from that.
Okay. I just want to make sure we don't mingle COVID monies because of the rise of this beast, and we not have funds if of course, this continues to rise and we get into another quote-unquote pandemic.
Yes, sir.
Having funds available for that would certainly be good to have.
Yes,
So
sir.
if we're doing $80,000 and we've got a balance of still about $300,000,
Would be
I
220.
think,
An example that you funded previously was food share from these
was
funds.
that now?
The food share program was an example. I'd have to get the staff to pull some other examples of what you utilized the funds for when there was a process of people applying at the time, but evidently there was only a very limited amount, I guess 150,000 maybe,
Mr. Mayor, move to approve.
that we allocated previously.
Mr. Taylor, then Ms. Dr. Bussells.
Mayor, I'm a big fan of this group. I just have to say, I do have some.
Mr. Taylor, could you, we can't hear you, I'm
So
sorry.
I'm a fairly significant fan of this group, and but I do have some concern for us going outside the city with this, to be honest with you, without knowing what the county is doing.
Yeah, they're on two knots right on the other side of the line. 62% of, close to that, maybe somewhere between 57 and 62% of it, they serve our community. So I think it's a well worth investment for us.
And along those same lines, I'm assuming there was no, usually some of our funds require that you be located in the city. That was not a requirement of this funding.
I don't recall the council at the time specifying due to the nature of what was going on at the height of when this was allocated. But the staff and I can research and see if we
I have
see
no
that.
problem moving this to the next agenda if we can answer any questions from any council members. I truly believe it's a well worthy. That's why it ends. This request has come up previously, and they've done some work in between. But I have no problem if there's still questions that need to be answered, some clarifications for folks. I'm glad to do that. I hope as things come up on our agenda and people have questions in the future that, let me know as well, because I'd like to get them answered before. So, but the will of council is to hold it and get some questions answered. I have I have no qualms about it. I still stand behind the support for this agency.
Yeah,
I,
Mr.
and
Mayor.
I think I was, I think I was next. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
So the question that I have is, based on how City Manager Wilson read the Resilience Fund kind of criteria, feels like those funds are supposed to be used for direct services that impact our community, and from what I understand, this is going to cover the HVAC. And so I would just like to know more information as to what the intent was of those funds. Was it to help help with the building costs? That's what's giving me pause. I have no problem giving money towards direct services that provide food insecure communities with the resources that they need, but to pay for someone's HVACs, but then not another nonprofits, I would like to know a little bit more.
Mr. Mayor, if I remember correctly, when this resilient fund was set up, it was set up primarily for COVID relief.
Well, it's not for, it's for nonprofits affected by COVID, which was one of the reasons here. But I want to make sure that everybody has their questions answered, because it's a worthwhile project that really does affect the most vulnerable in our community. It provides a service that's invaluable. So I'm going to withdraw my motion, ask for it to be put on August 16th. Anybody has any questions or clarifications? If I don't hear from you, then I'm assuming that you are supportive, and we'll just move forward from there.
Move to
Thank you.
defer. Yes, sir.
So we're at new business.
Or referrals and reports, yes,
We
sir.
have referrals, yes. Mr. Taylor, Dr. Bussells, Mr. Brennan.
Mayor, I would like to refer the 2221 real estate, Divine Street, to the ED committee. I have two more, too.
Yeah,
You want
go
to do them
ahead.
at one time, or do you want to do them?
If you'll do them all collectively, that would be
Okay.
beneficial. 221 Divine Street to the Economic Development Committee.
Yes, and then I'll refer certain ED projects and our incentive policy or SSRC policies to the Economic Development Committee.
For the public record, Mr. Taylor, would you mind just explaining SSRC? Not everybody knows what that is, just so the public knows what we're doing.
On some major projects, there have been histories of the county and the city working together to do some property tax reductions, and it's what our policy is in discussions with the county going forward on those type projects may be. And there may be 2 or 3 out there right now that we probably should take a look at and make sure we're in agreement with what the county wants to do, and that it enhances the city's position, and that we have a kind of a firm policy going forward. And it would be discussed at the committee and brought back to the county, brought back to city council.
These are for the credits you may receive if you're able to negotiate such a deal. I
That's
just
right.
want to make sure people knew what that was. And then you had a third one?
Yes, I would like to refer the grease trap rebate proposal that we've talked to back to the Economic Development Committee
Right.
for discussion.
So we'll take those 3. That's 2221 Divine Street, SRC credits, and the grease trap. We don't call it rebate program. Is that our term we use? Rebate program. So that's in the form of a motion. Is there a second? So we have first and second. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan? Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye. Dr. Bussells?
Mayor Rickenmann, if I might.
Yes,
and
ma'am. I'm
for-
sorry.
Yes, sir. For the sake of clarity and everybody's understanding going forward with the incentives and any ED projects that may have to be discussed in executive session, is the consensus of the council that the committee will go into executive session to discuss those items? I think
Yes,
y'all
ma'am.
had it. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I think
Well,
we
I
had to
sent
put
out
that
a-
on the record.
I know you've been tied up, but I did send out a memo making sure that that was all in that. So
I
everybody-
saw the memo. I wanted to make sure everyone on the council understood what that meant.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the clarity. Dr. Bussells?
Thank you. I'd like to refer exploring some of the ordinance ideas that have come out of the Task Force to Prevent and End Homelessness to the Public Safety Committee. And we'll point to the memo for more information, as well as working with staff who may have some historical context on those ordinances.
Do you have any specifics that you want to share?
So one ordinance that was suggested by the task force was to require the reporting of feeding in the city at least 24 hours prior. And then there are some updates that have been suggested in the past to our panhandling ordinance that our legal department is currently reviewing to ensure that we are in line with some of the cases that have been decided in other states. But I'd like to continue this discussion in committee to understand what our options are.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Bussells. Is a motion, and is that your motion?
Yeah, motion to refer to
Is there a
committee.
second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Just for clarification, would that be the Administrative Policy Committee?
No, that goes to public safety.
Public Safety.
Yes,
Thank you for
ma'am.
the clarification. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval? Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye.
Thank you.
Councilman Brennan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to send to the administrative committee, the Richland County has a fireworks ordinance, some changes to their noise ordinance that are working its way through a first reading, maybe a second by now. I just wanted to send it to administrative committee to take a look at it to see if there's any desire by the committee to take a look at possibly changing our noise ordinance. You know, we have a lot of donut holes that are here in the city that are county, so just would like them to take a look at it.
Can I get a motion? It's your motion and a second, then discussion.
Second.
All right, good, yes, Mr.
Mr. Mayor, I think that would be more properly referred to the Public Safety Committee instead of the Administrative Committee. And I think it's already been referred.
I didn't do it last week. Either way, what's included is looking at other municipalities in the state.
Yeah, and checking the state law.
But again, enforcement is going to be, you know, if there are changes, enforcement is the
I think
important part.
I would say that it's a public safety ordinance instead of an administrative.
You and Mr. Brennan worked that out, and y'all figure out.
Well, I did work it out, but now he wants to go to public safety, so you can add that to your list for the next public safety.
So that would be going to the public safety to clarify that. And so while we're on public, go ahead, because we're going to refer another one. So we've got a motion, we've got a second. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye.
Thank you.
As we continue to do referrals, you got one more?
One more.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
To the Economic Development Committee, I'd like to make a motion to send project and construction upfit progress summaries to 1401 Main Street, the Columbia Municipality Building, to Economic Development for review as we move forward.
We have a second with that. Madam Clerk, could we read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye.
Thank you.
Lastly, I would like to refer to the Public Safety Commission, Committee, to look at our nuisance ordinance and look at if it's time for us to look at how we may beef those up to handle some of the nuisance problems throughout the city and support our staff, both in law enforcement and others, so that we can make our community safer. So I'd ask for a review of the nuisance ordinance, and also an opportunity for us to take a look at what some of the other communities are doing to address nuisance cases.
You want us to put ghost guns in there while we at it?
What committee?
I thought that was already.
Mr. Duvall has found his funny bone today. That's my motion. Is there a second?
I'm sorry, I missed what committee?
Public safety. Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Discussion?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to make, that will include like stores that tend to sell things that prey on homeless and things like that are in some of the downtown neighborhoods.
I think a prime example would be not only nuisance ordinance, the overall nuisance ordinance to make sure, but also as we looked at what the county had done with some nuisance properties, convenience store, to be quite frank, that was a big problem in the neighborhood, how they addressed using nuisance ordinance to revoke its liquor license.
So this primarily is a discussion how we strengthen them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we want to look at it, make sure we're updating and strengthening. I thought, maybe I didn't make that clear, but.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Have we voted on that?
No, we're about to vote right now as the clerk gets ready to call the roll.
Absolutely. And Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duvall?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye. Mr. Duvall?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to refer to the Public Safety Committee a request I've had from the Five Points Association to look into the regulation of the distance between smoke shops and other businesses like the CBDD or
CBD.
CBD, and smoking. And
there was some
I
we
have
already
asked
had
the attorney to look at it.
Could I make a amendment to your motion? A friendly amendment. While you do that, I think it would be very important for us to discuss what requirements could be to have signage that shares with people the effects of products like Delta 8 and 9 that tend to show possibly up on drug tests and other things, and making sure that as we look at ordinances and rulings, how that can require for display that customers know the effects of these products.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just a question, just a clarifying question. Howard, is this any different than what we talked about?
This what?
Is this any different than what we talked about?
You gotta talk to the microphone. You can't talk to Howard.
You think that your ordinance, Ed, is about notification?
No, I'm not talking, no. Something totally different. What I'm asking is that several years ago, you introduced something similar to this a few years back. Is that the same thing, or is this exclusive?
Well, we passed a smoking ordinance a few years back that set distances from the front door of an establishment about smoking and vaping. We
That's
added
correct.
vaping to
That's
the existing smoking ordinance.
Yeah.
This may be an amendment to that, but it might be a separate thing. We'll study it and come back, but I think that we've got a proliferation of those type businesses.
Talking about the saturation of vape shops in certain areas.
Well, it would certainly be good. We've already got something on the book.
We've got something on the books, but
If
this
we
will be
could
an
amend
extension.
what it is now that you're having to go into public safety as a part of that total preview of things.
It'll regulate the same industry.
Yes.
So we have a friendly amendment motion. We have a second. Can we have the roll call, please?
Discussion, sir?
Yes, sir.
I just want to clarify in the motion, you amended the motion to include a study of warning signage that can require consumers of products sold in these stores that would possibly or likely fail a drug test. If they
That is
consume.
correct.
Thank you, sir.
And if passed, that this be a part of an ordinance that is already on our books, if we could make that real clear.
So any other discussion? We good? We clear? Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye.
Thank you.
Last but not least, I'd like to move forward ordinance number 2019-10, which is our ordinance that was amended for the purchase and sale of real property. We have some language worked along with staff that the property shall be deemed surplus by the city manager, who has the discretion to determine the method of disposal to be used by, but may not be included or limited to sealed bid process, listing of property for auction with a private auctioneer, any method determined by the city manager to commercially reasonably consider the type and location of property involved. I'd like to get this out and added to the agenda on August 16th. And between then, we have a work session next week. We can put it on there if there are any questions. But I think with us going through the process of looking at disposing of excess surplus property, but making it so that we get the most value of that property and having the flexibility and giving the city manager the authorization along with her staff to get that reasonably out. That would be my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any questions, concerns?
And I'm hoping that the work session will discuss pros and cons of the suggested changes, correct?
Yeah, I don't know what the cons are, but we sure will talk about the pros.
I'm not laughing. I just want to make sure we have a discussion of the pros and cons.
So you
Any
want
other-
it, you do want it on the August 9th work session, is what I'm hearing?
If we need a brief question period, I think it's going to be very small for anybody on council, just to clear, but I'd like to make sure it's on the agenda for the 16th.
The 9th and the 16th.
Yes, ma'am. Any more discussion, questions?
I'm going to do it now.
Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye. Any other new business?
Yes, I'd like to add to news business at a future meeting, a presentation from staff or the appropriate entity to give us an update on the Comet bus stations and where they're moving with some of the recent news about Sumter becoming kind of one of the stopping points, but maybe not the hub, with some of the changes being made towards Lucius Road and where the Comet headquarters is. And so it doesn't have to be the next meeting, but in the next couple of meetings, if we can get that on the agenda and get an update, that'd be great.
Do you need us to vote on that, or is that, okay, ma'am? Any other new business? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I was wanting to make sure you all got everything out that you needed to refer. And as I see the additional items, I was going to talk with Chairman Taylor about the Economic Community Development Committee action plan for economic development. But so that all of council is aware, I would suggest, I think the council directed me to move forward with the overall action plan and restructure, and I think we have put that together. So as we're taking up now several items in committee, if Mr. Chair is willing, we could bring that action plan to your next committee as well and go over it with you ahead of time if you'd like, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Well, we've asked the clerk to find a meeting date for us on that.
I just wanted to make sure that would be okay.
You need vote of the council to
I
add
don't
that?
think so. I think
You're
that
good.
was something that you all had asked us to do.
Yes, ma'am.
So, okay.
Just want to make sure.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
Is there any other business? 'Cause we're working. I love this. We got committees working. Things are moving. This is beautiful. Thank you all for all your hard work. Is there anyone here who would like to speak? I know that Ms. Wiley, I told you earlier. No, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Good to
My
see
name
you.
is Diane Wiley, 4036 Webb Court. I'm not going to argue. I'm calm. But my issue is, I don't mind the kids in our neighborhood where the old Burton Pack, 3601 Thurman Street, come out and play. But we have been having trouble ever since 4th of July. I done passed in the papers and the pictures. I got more. They won't clean up. We have persons that pick up paper every day. They won't clean up.
Do we have receptacles there? Do we have trash bins and so forth there?
There's no need to do that because they put it all on the side. I done sent the pictures to.
But if we put some out there, will they put it in it, is my question.
No, they won't.
Have we tried?
We have. They had 2 out there. And the parting, they had a back to school. We didn't have a back to school because it was so hot and whatnot. But they went in there and had back to school. They're not coming in our neighborhood. These are people who don't live in our neighborhood. And they're not going to come in and mess up, partying all night long. The bullets. You know, that's got to stop. Come in, do what you got to do, but I'm for the kids. But you got dirty diapers all out there strung out. I done sent the the pictures to Mr. McDowell and the bullets. I gave it to Chief. I've been getting calls ever since 4th of July, day
We'll
and
take
night.
a look, Ms. Wismeiler. We'll make sure we do a little extra sweep
Yeah,
over there.
I'm going to email the school board
Yes, ma'am.
too, because, cars lying down the street, the paper is going in people's yards. That's all, they got to do better. You're not going to come in and do something we don't know nothing about,
I agree with you.
you know.
It's not
So,
acceptable.
I want to address that. Mr. McDowell, you got something to say to me?
What now?
Have anything to say to me?
No,
Well, I thought you said.
I'm fine. You said it all.
Yeah, because, like I say, you're not taking over our neighborhood. That's it. When I get aggravated, I'm a call. I called the police all this weekend from 4th of July all the way up to,
Ms. Wiley, one thing I know,
Yeah.
you ain't gonna give up your neighborhood. We
oh,
know that.
no. I'm calm now, I'm very calm. But please, y'all
But we're
do
here to help
something.
you. Yes,
To
ma'am.
do something. And what he said about the fireworks, all night long. It shouldn't be happening. Then one of y'all city workers call our neighborhood old. I'm not old. I'm just better. But I let that slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wiley. Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this time?
I have one caller and public input, Mayor.
Yes,
All
please.
right. Caller, you're being added to the meeting now.
Hello, my name is Tiffany Ruiz, and I'm a resident of Liberty Ridge subdivision. I wanted to call and comment on items proposed by Wood Creek Development LLC. So the applicant continues to develop this area, which includes townhomes, Taco Bell, and a Quick Trip at the exit of this subdivision. And there's also now the Starbucks and Bojangles across the street, and this is the only exit next to Jacob Mill Pond Road to exit the subdivision. And there's an increase in concern for safety of residents at this community because there's accidents weekly. And I know that they're trying to expand Spears Creek Church Road, but residents have reached out, and it appears that there's a miscommunication or lack of communication by the developer, which is Wood Creek Development LLC. So I wanted to take this opportunity to make the council aware that residents they're concerned for their safety because we don't want to wait until the expansion of Spears Creek Church Road for that light to be turned on.
Thank you for calling in. We will connect you with our planning department to make sure that we get all the items that you mentioned clearly on record and see if we can respond to any other questions you have. But thank you for calling in.
That is it, Mayor.
Is there anyone else? Close to 45 minutes, with time to spare so that we may go out to our neighborhoods and enjoy National Night Out, which is tonight. We look forward to seeing everyone out. If you don't have plans tonight, we've got a nice list here of neighborhoods that are having events. They'd love to see you in their neighborhood. You don't have to live there to go by and enjoy your neighbor. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
There'll be no discussion, so Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor? Ms. Herbert? Dr. Bussells?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Yes. Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickenmann?
Aye,
Have a good night.
thank you.